This is the Freeheel Life Podcast, episode number 149. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you from the Freeheel Life shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And what's up, everybody? Happy to be back and welcome you to Monday. Hopefully you're listening to this first thing and sipping down that beverage of choice, getting ready for the grind of the week. And if you are so lucky that you have no grind, I hope you're enjoying it anyways. And the rest of us will get after it. So good to be back. Always fun to be here, talk Telemark, and I always get a little more excitement in my voice as we start heading into October. It's my birthday month, and which I don't know what that means when we get older. I don't know if I'm supposed to be excited about that. But hey, it's my birthday month. I think of it, like that. But also, it's getting close to when the snow starts hitting the ground, and we can start thinking about dropping some knees, which is what it is all about. So on the business side of the house, newsroom and notes. First off, September was fantastic for us, and we really, really appreciate all the support. It was quite the experiment to keep on a staff this summer and kind of look into what that might look like. That was really important for us. Want you to know that every purchase anybody made during the summer really helped us move the needle. And that's what's cool about small business like us. Even though we have, what I would say a fairly large footprint across the globe, it's still, we're still a small business. And so every little bit helps. So we appreciate that. We hope we're providing the service that you expect, and we're doing our best to improve and always be the best out there. So thanks for shopping with us. Especially everyone who picked up the Evolution tee last week. Big shout out to Telly Tay. That was his idea that he's had for many, many years. And I finally was like, dude, let's make that t-shirt. So, and it was one that seemed very popular because it sold out really quick. So be sure to get on that. We're going to add, excuse me, I'm a little choked up. I'm always choked up when I'm around you guys. We put up some suggestions on like Instagram and Facebook. People were kind of chiming in like, hey, maybe you should do a long sleeve, try this color. We're always open to that. So we're gonna definitely add some to this next batch. Some other options. I don't actually know what they are, but I know we're gonna add some. So be sure to keep an eye out for those. Probably a couple weeks away, 2 to 3 weeks away, close to when we're going to open the shop. We don't have an exact date for shop opening yet. Probably mid-month, at least with some hours. It's probably not going to be, last year we ran the retail space from noon until 7 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday. We're kind of looking at some data points right now and trying to figure out what might be a good option for us in October, just so we can staff appropriately and then kind of get the ball rolling with the tech shop and all that fun stuff. So stay tuned. I'll make sure to announce it. The minute we've got that date, we will announce it on the podcast and all the platforms that we got. So stay tuned for that. So the only industry news I was kind of thinking of just tossing it out there is one of the binding companies we deal with. The company formerly known as the M Equipment is now called In Wild. I feel like this is like a Prince reference, like the artist formerly known as, and then we're just gonna have a symbol. Anyways, their M Equipment is no longer, but the company is still there. They're now called In Wild, and In Wild, I guess, is a combination of innovation in and then wild, obviously outdoors. They're calling themselves In Wild Outdoors. Very cool. They're still making the Majo 3.0 and say that their focus is in Telemark. I'm going to give you my hot take on this. Only because I always hope, here's always my concern is, and they're great. And I love Pierre. I love that business. My concern is always that once you go to that outdoor moniker tied in there, and it said in their little press release or whatever on social media, like, hey, we're looking at starting to create other products in the outdoor industry. I've seen this happen like over the last 20 years. It's happened a couple different times. I won't go into which companies or the details, but there's definitely some case studies for it. And I always kind of worry from the Telemark perspective. You all know that I'm like, build our industry, be a Telemark company. And a lot of that comes from watching other people sort of try to branch out wider. And I get it. As a businessman, I want to make sure we've got the widest audience as possible. And that's really important, right? Like you want a big audience, but you know, what I hope is that their focus continues to evolve on their Telemark products. I don't even know what else they're going to make, honestly. They haven't announced it, or I haven't seen it. I looked on the website. I haven't seen anything else. My speculation is probably something like mountain bike or hiking or whatever, which is totally cool. I would love to see companies, you know, and anybody who listens religiously to the podcast, you know that I always talk about companies getting strained, you know, if they're a footwear company like Scarpa. That's a footwear company that makes Telemark boots. And, you know, they haven't put a Telemark boot out since 2008. So you kind of get my gist, right? Like that's kind of where I'm going. So anyways, that's the quote unquote industry news for the week. M Equipment is no longer. It's called In Wild. Most of it's kind of retooled. They've retooled and restamped most of the Majos. At least that we've gotten most of the parts say In Wild. So get in wild, people. You know, I don't know. I keep wanting to make jokes about that, but best wishes to them, and hopefully they are able to continue some focus on some Telemark fixations, as the French would like to call them, Telemark bindings. Okay, so today I'm going to be doing a little mailbag episode number 9, and just good time to kind of clean up the inbox. And this is always a good way to do it, is sort of batch them. I always tell you to email me, podcast@freeheellife.com. I absolutely love hearing from all of you out there. Sometimes if I don't respond, this is kind of my way of batching it, getting them all together and responding kind of in a group setting. So hopefully that works for you too. Maybe one day when I have a full-time assistant to answer emails for me and help me out, we'll see what happens. So that would be pretty cool. I think one of the episodes that kind of was consistent in some of these emails was the message to the beginner telemark skier, which I thought was super cool. Honestly, and you know, because it's just an audio podcast at this point, but you know, when it goes over to YouTube, I couldn't believe the numbers. I mean, hardly, you know, I always expect most listeners are, you know, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, that kind of stuff, you know, because it's audio. You're not really seeing the video. In Spotify, I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit, but we are on Spotify as well. But the YouTube numbers were crazy for this episode, and I was like, oh, all right, well, maybe that's a good thing. And I had hoped that message to a beginner telemark skier maybe resonated with some folks, and it seems like it did. So that's good, because I always say beginners kind of get left out of the mix in telemark a lot of times. But it was fun to kind of hear people, you know, actually respond to it and say, hey, this was a cool episode. Here's why. So I'm going to kind of jump in and just I'm going to pick out some emails, like I said, mailbag episode, and kind of answer some questions and sort of respond to some of these on the episode today. No better way than Telemark Pirate Radio to get your Monday going and hear what other people are saying. So I'm going to kick this off with Nick B. He hit me up, said, I got on Telly one day last year, and this dude said, drive the knee like you mean it. As every day is a practice day for a POW day, what knowledge would you drop about dropping knees in POW? I fully invested in Telly with TX Pro Outlaws and Fisher Ranger 115. Thanks. Super new, Telly Nick. Money. Nick, awesome. Thanks for listening. And I'm so psyched that you had your first day last year and that you fully invested. I think fully invested is the most common like segue from what you wrote to how to get to powder. And I obviously there's some, I just think telemark across the board is if you fully commit, telemark becomes so much better just in terms of a craft because it requires attention. And so what kind of attention for powder? I remember learning powder for the first time. It was a little bit different because, you've got a Ranger 115. The skis are different. Like when I learned skiing powder, it was truly skinny skis, and a little bit different mechanics because you're quite a bit lower in the snow, especially on a foot or a 2 foot type of day, you're lower. The modern day ski setup, I'd say anything like, 80 to 115 underfoot. That's a pretty wide range. Or even let's just average it out like, that 100 mark, you're going to get good flotation, and it's important. So my tips for people learning to ski powder is get your turn dialed on the groomers and really pay attention to sort of, most everyone's kind of is familiar or has heard of big toe, little toe. It's like if you were to make, you're teaching a brand new skier, oftentimes with kids, we'll call it pizza, French fries, pizza being a snowplow or a wedge, French fries being your skis are parallel. They look like French fries. We got it. And I'm not going to say that, I'm an old dude and I still like pizza and French fries because that's how I teach. So, but really, really take some time on groomers with taking a lot of laps. You're going to be doing that anyways, learning how to telly this year, and dedicating full time. But that big toe, when you push, like if you're in a wedge and you push your left big toe, you're going to go right. And as you get to parallel, if you go left, you're going to push the opposite toe. Big right toe, push down, and pinky little toe is where you pressure on the left left foot as you go left. So just start there. Start with some nice drills. We talked about this in that beginner lesson. Drilling is so important. Learning how to roll your ankles, learning how to get in your stance correctly and quickly, and learning how to be dynamic up and down as you're learning to switch your lead leg. Okay. So as you go to powder, like there's not a whole lot of difference in the technical aspect of what your body is doing. The way that I like to think about it personally is sort of, it's mastering, and let me say this, and then I'll kind of back up and give some more finer points to it. To me, it's mastering sort of a delay. Okay. Now that delay, when I mean that is it's like, when you're on hard pack, when you make a move, you make a move. It's pretty immediate. With soft snow, and it differs because if we're talking 6 inches of snow or we're talking 24 inches of snow, we're talking a very different sort of dynamic. And, a lot of people say they may not think you're using your edges, but you really are. You're still using edges. It's just they're not purchasing on a hard surface. And so basically the timing is a little delayed, I think is the easiest way for me to think about it, is you kind of have to just get your rhythm a little bit more on lock depending on the deepness of the fresh snow. I honestly think powder skiing for the first time is get out on like that 4 or 6 inch day where my perfect scenario for teaching someone soft snow skiing is they groomed it at the end of the day or overnight. And from the time they groomed it to the time you got to it in the morning, your first chair and you're up there's like 4 to 6 inches on top of groomer. I think that's an amazing opportunity to learn how to ski soft snow because it just has a little bit slippy, slidey, different feel to it. But that 4 to 6 inches is a lot less committing than when you're in multiple feet of snow. But I think you get the glide and you get your skis are disappearing a little, kind of going under, which is another kind of visual mind thing that sometimes is weird for people. Like, I can't see my skis. I don't know what I'm doing, because they're not used to like looking forward at the terrain. They're looking at their feet maybe a little too much. So that's kind of my 2 cents is keep the mechanics going on hard pack, get good at your lead change, switching your telemark turn from left to right, get the feeling in your ankles and your big toe, little toe. Go do some pizza and French fries. Like I said, go by yourself. So you don't have to worry about being like, hey, I'm going to drill pizza, French fries. And your homies are like, what are you doing? You're lame. And you're like, yeah, but I'm going to roll on a powder day. So, and then just understanding the delay kind of motion. Last thing I'll say, the best part about powder skiing that I love is the up and down motion of when you're skiing hard pack, when you come up between turns to do your lead change, you're releasing your edges and shifting your weight in your hips, right? And in powder, that's happening as well. But the thing I love about powder is it's almost like a flotation to the top, almost like you're surfacing as you release your edge and come up. It's almost like you're becoming weightless. And I think that's why powder skiing, especially on tellies, is so amazing, is your legs are dynamically moving while you're going up and down and forward. I mean, it's amazing. There's just so much going on. And I think it's just pleasing to the brain. So good luck, Telly Nick B. And hope that helps. Definitely shoot me an email and let me know how it goes when you hit that first soft day. Okay, moving on to the next one. Adam T. Subject, skiing in Norway. He said, hey Josh, big fan and supporter of FHL. My wife and I are looking into ski or sail trips in Norway for the coming year. Any chance you have some info or know where I can get more info on skiing up there? I have some good info from the guides and outfitters I found on the internet, but don't know how to sort through the regions or know how to best find the best times. Side note, because I'm a religious weekly listener of the FHL podcast, I reconnected with a childhood friend, Julian Tayo, who was on several weeks ago, back out of Sun Valley. I went to elementary school and played all sorts of sports together when we were young. So thanks to you, I'm headed to Sun Valley to drop some knees with him next winter. Thanks for all you do for the Telemark universe, Adam. Love that. Thank you so much for listening, Adam. I'm psyched you got hooked up with Julian too. And this is starting to happen more and more. I absolutely love it. Like Telemark people that, I think I got a Daryl Finlayson. I had like 30-year patroller from Deer Valley, a guy he knew in like high school on the East Coast out in New York State, messaged me and was like, hey, this is awesome. I didn't even know where this guy went, and now he's on a podcast, and here I am listening to it across the country. So this is what it's all about, folks. Spreading Telemark and reconnecting people, and I just love that. So to kind of go to the meat of the question, Adam, I have limited experience personally skiing Norway. I mean, funny enough, so now I've been to Norway 3 times. Both the first 2 times I went to southern Norway where Telemark is. As all of you know, it's kind of a long, not a super populated country. I think it's 6 million total, but it's sort of elongated. And Telemark region is southern Norway, so haven't skied much outside of there in the Telemark region. I know, a lot of people are familiar with Bergen and kind of that zone. I don't know what the ski culture is there. The first 2 areas that come to mind are up near Trondheim and Tromsø, which are northern. And I know there's little Telemark communities there. So if anybody from northern Norway or anybody from Norway can hit me up, I can connect Adam with you, and maybe that'd be cool to get some like local feedback. And if you're a guide outfitter too, or, and you're a Telemark person, or maybe not even Telemark, I'd love to have someone like that on the podcast. Definitely always looking for more travel stuff, destination stuff. Probably going to do more of that in the future. So, Adam, I'll try to see if anybody hits us up. I'll try to connect you with what I'm finding out, but I definitely know there are. I know you said sail and ski, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I remember the only other thing that was coming to my mind is, again, I think up in that northern region, some of the springtime skiing. I remember, I think we published it in Telemark Skier magazine back in the day, where this is probably a little more extreme than you want to go, but I remember, I think if I remember correctly, and I'm not embellishing, these guys were skiing some closeout couloirs with life jackets on down to the water, which was kind of crazy. I remember being like, what is going on here? But it was kind of like, if they couldn't self-arrest or something, they didn't want to just like go off into the sea. So anyways, I'm sure you're looking for something much more tame, and I'm sure somebody will probably email with some more info, but sounds like a lot of fun. Let us know how it goes. And yeah, even if you go do it and you want to do a little podcast, hit me up and we'll do a little debrief podcast on sailing and skiing in Norway. Always down for that. All right. So moving over to another episode people liked. Actually, and I actually did get a lot of feedback on this one about Art Burrows. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, highly recommend it. I know I put out one every week, so I get it. If you're like, haven't listened to every single episode, and God bless you all that listen every week. I have a blast doing it. It means a lot to me, but I also know that's a time commitment. So thank you for listening. But this Art Burrows one, Art Burrows is like OG telly guy from Colorado. It's an awesome episode. He was really involved with some early Phoenix skis, which kind of came out of trucker, and then some boot designing as well. And awesome episode. Anyways, this is Mike M. He hit me up, and his email said, "Hey Josh, just caught up on the Art Burrows episode this weekend and thought it was great to hear the brief shout out to Gene Dayton and the early telemark competition scene in Summit County. The Breck Nordic Center has become one of our favorite places to spend time, and Gene is a fixture around there, having started the place along with a few other Nordic areas and telemark schools. He's always around, whether fitting rentals, driving the cat, giving lessons, or if you stick around till closing time, playing his accordion by the fireplace, which my daughters love. His son Josh runs the shop there, and his wife is usually at the front desk. They've built up a great community around another Freeheel side of the sport. Love the podcast, my Protector 105s, and everything you guys are doing out there. Mike." Hey, thanks so much. Big shout out. I love it when people tell us that they're Protector owners too. That means a lot, because there's, after this year, I mean, we're still sub 100 of these pairs of skis out there, so that, I'm holding my heart saying that. It means a lot. And to have people out there on our skis that we put that much time and effort into, that's amazing. What's even more amazing about this is I'm looking, and I know we got to get a visual going on these podcasts because there's so much cool stuff to show. He's got this killer picture of Gene Dayton playing an accordion in this awesome kind of log cabiny. I think this is probably the Nordic Center from what the email says. Not an easy instrument, and respect to Gene Dayton. His name keeps popping up, so I'll keep shouting it out. Hopefully I can get him on the podcast. If anybody's got his phone number, I probably could get his phone number, but if anybody knows him and directly, tell him I would love to have him on the podcast. I think it's come up twice, and I think it was called the Great American Telemark Festival or Gathering. I mean, this was like super old school back in the 70s. If I'm getting my dates right, and kind of predated a lot of stuff that I think most of us think of, in terms of telemark revival of sorts in America. So this cat, Gene Dayton, definitely an important figure, and obviously is kind of focused more on the other Nordic disciplines. Probably more with like a Nordic center, but there's so many historical ties to Nordic centers and telemark. These guys deserve as much of a shout out as anybody. So, Mike, thanks so much. Awesome to awesome to get your email, and that picture rules. I hope I'm the old guy playing an accordion at Freeheel Life. I'm trying to do the math. 40 years? That might, that's pushing it. Hopefully I'm still around, but I don't know if I'm going to be jamming an accordion, maybe an electric guitar. But either way, I guess that's probably something to aspire to. Okay, rolling on into the next one. I'm going to kind of bounce around this email a bunch. It's a little bit longer one, but it was a fun one. This is from Gib M. And shot me an email. Hey, what's up? Just checking in. Started listening to the pod a month ago-ish and have been loving it. So I'm here to quasi-share my story, but also check in on some stuff I've heard you mention. First off, I organized my pods on Spotify oldest to newest because I wanted to start from scratch. And for some reason, it tells me there's only 47 is the oldest one available. So I'm just going to plug in here, Gib. This came up twice in the last week, and I was like, what? Like, there's, 100. This is episode 149. I went back and checked Spotify. I'm currently working on it. So if you're a Spotify listener and you're going for the deep cuts, for some reason, and even since I got this email, now it's like up to, I think he said episode 47 was the cutoff. I went and checked again, and it was like episode 50. So I don't know. I need to, I poked around a little bit this week to figure out like maybe it's an upgrade thing I need to do. And, I'm obviously, from the way I'm speaking, incredibly technically savvy on the internet. So I'm all right, but it's probably something like that. So if you're a Spotify listener, Gib was not the only one that hit me up like within the last couple weeks and was like, I'm trying to go deep dive on this and I can't get past episode 50. So maybe it maxes at 100 episodes. So I'll dig into that, and I'll definitely announce it when I figure it out. If anybody's not getting it on your preferred platform of choice and you're having to go somewhere else, like I said, it's on most of the major stuff. Apple, Google, Stitcher, our Libsyn hosting side, all that. But yeah, anyways, I will work on Spotify because I know a lot of people use Spotify, and I would love to have all the episodes there so you can get the deep cuts. So back to his email. I'm going to kind of paraphrase and skip through this. He had brought a Northland Skis Up episode 148, and it sounds like a couple of buddies his were involved in bringing that back to life. And I love that Northland skis. I need to get more info on that. I know it came back because I found it on Instagram and stuff. But I still haven't, I don't know much about it like currently. Anyways, good history stuff. And I love this. At least half a dozen people have emailed about Northland, which is pretty awesome. And knowing about it from the Midwest. And he just said, fast forward a year after learning about them in the ski shop, talking about Northland and that I worked at for 6+ years growing up, partners in Northland. Let's see. The shop is Hickory and Tweed. It's in Armonk, New York. It has an amazing staff with the newest 7th grade punk to the owner and operator, Skip Batesel. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Sorry, Skip. Skip worked there as a teen like many, but years later purchased the company from its original owner, I believe. He's an absolute legend. From Stowe to Utah and other places all over the globe, he knows the sport, loves the sport, and lives the sport. Would be an awesome person to have on the pod. I don't know how much time he spent on the broken binding, but he's got a natural overall love for skiing. I bought my first telly setup from him when I was working there. In 2009, I put a BD-01 on a vocal bridge. And in parentheses, he said, I thought I was sick. I love that. And I bought a pair of used Scarpa T4, the all black low cut with the lace up liners from a guy who worked at the shop. That was pretty much the day Alpine died for me. So seeing Northland pop up in my life in Steamboat, having it connect to my past life on the East was really cool. And he just kind of goes on there. If I'm taking anything from Gibbs' email, is that from here forward, that day that clicks, We talked about that in the message to the beginner telemark skier. There's that day that clicks. We all know the day that clicks. I want you all to write the date down. And from here forward, we are going to call it the day Alpine died. And that will be the date. So we will all have our individual death date of Alpine. And you are now ready to go as a telemarketer into the future, into the light. I love it. Gib, rock and roll, man. So stoked that you're doing it. I love the history, and I did read your whole email. I'm not going to get into it all here, but I'll do my best to get all the older episodes on the Spotify platform so you can check them out, because there's some fun ones in the way back time machine. All right, I got a email from Zach, one of our Midwest friends. Hey, Madsen. Midwest skier here. I like that. Reppin'. I started telemark skiing in high school, 2008 or so, as a change of pace to ski racing. My dad had been telemark skiing for a couple of seasons already, and he encouraged me to try it out. I bought a set of Karhu 178 and a set of Riva cable bindings. Being an alpine ski racer, I thought I'd pick it up first run. Yet, I wasn't that confident to hit the main runs at Alpine Valley, southeastern Wisconsin, for reference. So I headed over to the Blues. Right call, because I face planted off the chairlift on my first offload. It took me at least a couple of days to confidently link up some turns. I took out the tele skiers. I took out the tele skis whenever we would have a free skiing session as part of the ski racing program at Norway Mountain. It's near Iron Mountain, Michigan, in the UP. I'd like to get away from the competitive nature of ski racing and just free ski, which is what telemark skiing allowed me to do. The turns that really turned telemark skiing into a passion was during a spring ski trip to Summit County. Already stoked because I was out west, no racing involved, with one high school friend. His parents were at the bar, and we got 6 inches plus of snow every night. I remember having a lot of difficulties with the powder, but eventually I linked up 3 to 4 turns at Copper Mountain. They were perfect turns in my mind. A fresh, untouched line in the trees and waist-deep powder. I can still visualize the line. Anyways, really appreciate the podcast, part of my Monday routine. Can't wait for Midwest Telefest. Y'all should come check out Bohemia then. We got a solid group up there. Zach. I love this email. This embodies everything I always talk about. There's a moment that happens. Zach talks about it here. And he touched on the powder thing too. It clicks. It works. He already knew how to make the turns, but then he gets in and like that's that other moment. You know, you link turns on a hard pack. That's one moment, right? And then there's these powder turns, and I love that he can still, you know, he started telemarking in 2008. I mean, this is a long time ago, and he still remembers that day where he linked a couple turns, and it just felt awesome. That's what this is all about, people. I want to share that with you every podcast, every time we talk about telemark, everything you look at with Freeheel Life. The root of it is exactly what he's talking about here. You know, it's different. It's different than every other snow sport, in my opinion. And it's because people have that moment, the moment that Alpine died. And it's great. So, Zach, thank you so much for sending that in and sharing your story. I love these stories too. I know sometimes I can't share them all, but I would love to personally read them, and I'll get back to you either, you know, like I said, batch them and do them in a mailbag, or send them to me and I'll just email you back. podcast@freeheellife.com. Tell me what's up. Tell me that moment. And if you remember the date that Alpine died in your life, hit me up. I love it. I'll probably do a whole episode. Oh man. Now I've got that song, the day the music died, stuck in my head. I'm like, how do I make that into an Alpine death song? Oh man. So bye. Okay, never mind. All right, here we go. So next one, Jamie hit us up. Josh, love your podcast from September 5th. Even for the intermediate skier, the advice you gave was so valuable. I have a question about switching from 75 millimeter to NTN. Heading into this season, I'm switching from the 22 Designs axle to Outlaw X. I ran my axles with standard springs on the middle setting. What setting do you think I should start with on the Outlaw? Jamie B. Awesome, Jamie. Glad, cool to see you're switching over, and awesome. You're coming from probably the best binding option that goes into Outlaw directly. That 22 to 22 is a more mild switch. And the fact that you're on a middle position with standard springs makes me confident that you can probably, I would start off on position 1 on the spring, standard spring on a Outlaw. The reason being the pivot point, it's fixed on the Outlaw. We've talked about this on various episodes, but you don't have the slick pin to switch. And I think people go into the NTN platform. I think the fact that you're on middle position, I think you're probably going to feel a little closer to like position 3. And there's a lot more rigidity to it. But I think you're going to be all right, you know? It might take a little bit of an adjustment. You know, with being on position 2, and I'm taking a guess here, but you don't sound like the super low smoker type, you know, like need a ski on the axle, which is totally possible, but most of those people like to rock like position 1 furthest forward on the slick pin to get lower to the ski. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents. Go Outlaw X, position 1, and standard spring, and just kind of rock it. Only other factor that I don't have the info here is your boot size. You know, sometimes that can be a factor if you've got like a smaller boot size, like a 24 or 25. You know, there's just less, it can feel stiffer, you know, but I don't really know. Yeah, I can't really give advice on that because I don't know how it's going to feel. But that's my main guess. That's kind of how we guide people in our retail shop is, you know, that switch from axle to Outlaw is usually pretty smooth. Okay. This next one's from Alan G. And he just said, you briefly mentioned in a recent visit to Oslo recap episode about the super old school skis, maybe from Finland, that had one short ski with a fur skin on it and the one longer ski for gliding. And he said, you are correct. Those were used in Finland for multiple thousands of years and even up until the 1800s. The short one was called Kalu, Kalhu, and the long was called Lyly, Lyly. Anyways, if you're interested in learning a bit more, here's a paper written on them. The good stuff starts on page 2 with the photo of the rock carving from with folks hunting on skis. Hope you find it interesting. And yeah, this is great. And those skis were wild to see in person because you're talking about, you know, we're so used to seeing like very symmetrical looking skis, at least height wise. I know people have tried to make asymmetrical, especially in Telemark history. You kind of have these asymmetrical designs for the turn, but these were like very utilitarian type skis where you had like a skin on one and you could glide on the other, but one was short, one was really tall. And we're talking big skis. I mean, I'm trying to think the long one had to be like 230 centimeters. Could be wrong. I don't know. Just ballparking here. Thanks for the details, Alan. I printed that off. I'm going to put a link in the show notes too for people to check out because a lot of that ski history is really cool. And it's cool to see how people use skis for travel, for hunting, for all this stuff, and how it evolved into sport and kind of where we're at modern times. And a lot of those applications are totally there still, you know, in terms of cruising around and doing all that good stuff. So, Alan was interested in some contacts in Morgadal. Sounds like he's another Spotify person because he said they removed the episode. Thank you for letting me know this stuff. Sometimes there's so much going on. I would never know unless you guys tell me. So thank you so much. Alan, I'll shoot you the Hamish Moore's his name. I'll shoot you some contact info and we'll figure out the Spotify thing, because I'm guessing you're on that platform too. And I would love for you guys to be able to go back and find stuff and cross-reference when you need to. Okay, this next one's from old Bobby T. And thanks for listening, Bobby. You're always a good stalwart listener. So he said, "Hey, Josh, congrats on the acquisition of Bluebird Day Gear. Glad to see that you're keeping their product line alive. I hope you plan to have Jeff on the podcast soon. You often state how if this sport is going to grow, we have to do it ourselves. A lot of us have ideas, homebrew creations, etc., but Jeff actually went ahead and made a legit business out of it. It'd be fascinating to hear how he made it work, what challenges he faced, and what guidance he would have for anyone else tempted to try something similar. Like, how in the world did he afford insurance? Anyways, keep up the awesome work, Bobby T." Yeah, thanks so much. I know, but we already had Jeff Cox on. We didn't cover that particular question. I know, and these guys, Bobby, I think, is included in this group. We talked about the UTN, Universal Telemark Norm. A lot of this conversation has been going on Dossie's old forum, where a lot of these dudes hang out. They're very DIY. I think they're even there's some sort of like tinkering summit or something. It's an interesting time, and I think this is a good question. I don't have an answer to this particular question right this second. But if there's one thing I've learned over the years, someone's done all of this stuff, like to a certain extent, Telemark business is still kind of in its infancy as true Telemark business that's not like backcountry associated. That's new. I mean, a lot of what we do at Freeheel Life, I mean, we're straight up in the jungle with, a machete every day, like I think people sometimes think a lot of this stuff's been done, and there are lots of case studies. I mean, I geek out on that stuff all the time. I try to study how businesses have worked in the past, why they didn't succeed, which ones did well, which ones started in Telemark, but bailed on Telemark for a wider audience instead of staying, to that route where they started. But despite the jungle, despite the machete, despite the, we've got to figure this out. I will stand by what he's saying. I do always tell everybody, we have to do this ourselves. No one's coming to save us. You know what I mean? So, we've got to be our own first responder, essentially, right? Like it's up to us to figure this out. But there are ways, and I guess to kind of vaguely answer Bobby's question is, one, I know everything can be done. Two, I know insurance can sometimes seem out of reach, but honestly, I think there's options out there that people would probably be surprised to get into some of this stuff. I'm not saying it's doable. I'm not promising anything. I'm just saying, like, I think if you start digging around, it's not like people haven't started binding companies or people haven't started, accessory stuff, like Bluebird. Everyone's probably done it. And I think, maybe there's some interest there I can see the homebrew sort of bubbling up out there. And, I think for good reason, a lot of people, they have really good ideas, but they're not really sure how to do them. And honestly, most people, if you listen to that Jeff Cox podcast, we were kind of joking because, Jeff's an engineer and I'm a business guy, and we're both telemark skiers, but he loves the puzzle of engineering and I love the puzzle of business. So, anybody who's going to jump into the realm of running the business side, you got to kind of like that too. But part of that puzzle is figuring out insurance, figuring out distribution, figuring out how to get it out to people. And, that's why I love these types of questions. So, Bobby, maybe reach out to me direct again, or I'll try to answer this email, and maybe we can chop it up about some of this stuff behind the scenes. And, if there's more people out there and you have questions, I'll do my best to at least give you a direction to go. So I think that's a fair way to do it. Alrighty. So we're going to kind of wrap up. I had one other email I just wanted to kind of touch on real quick. If you made it this far, this kind of goes along with the business thing. I thought that was a decent segue from Bobby T's email and kind of going into this other one. And I'm not going to really call out names or anything like that, but it got me thinking about stuff. And I feel like, you're my family out there. You listen to the podcast. And I'm always trying to be, let people know what we're doing, like what Freeheel Life is. And we're always trying to kind of make sure people understand what it is, the business itself. And I got this email, and it was sort of, I felt like it's sort of time just to bring this up for folks. And that's, I am 100%, when I started the Spread Telemark hashtag, or doing events, or when I was the editor at Telemark Skier Magazine, or all these things I've done, I very much came at Telemark, first as an athlete. I did that for 7 years. And then a lot of my career has been sort of in this space of media and sharing and trying to get the word out, right? Like that's kind of always been what I've been all about. And, one of the things, and I'll probably go into this a little bit deeper in maybe its own podcast, but some people had kind of reached out and they're like, why aren't you talking about this? Or, why aren't you talking about this retail shop or this person or this media thing going on or whatever? And, I absolutely want to help everybody that I can. But this is also a business, right? Like, and, this is something, I've made a decision probably the last 6 months to a year that, we really want to, the way we believe we can affect change, the way I believe we can affect change best. And this is someone that's been doing a lot of different aspects of this for a long time, is as a brand. It's really important. I feel like that's what we can do. So, we started making skis. We have a retail shop, but we're trying to make more of our own product to push through that retail shop. Acquiring Bluebird Day Gear. I've been so excited that we got that episode done and out and got to tell everyone about that. Obviously, I have a lot of background in media, doing videos, events. We've got lots of experience doing that. World Telemark Day. So there's this family of brands that I've created over a long period of time. And I feel like the best way for us to help drive forward is, when I can help and do it in a way to help people, 100% will. And I'm all about that. But I also believe 100% in competition. And I like the fact that there's other folks out there doing things that are going to compete against us. So of course, I don't want to give up all the secrets, right? And I think there's a template there that is easy to follow. But that's why. So if sometimes people are like, why aren't you covering this or covering that? It's kind of like any business, right? And I know I'm a big fan of competition, raising the bar, and we want to be the standard. Freeheel Life, everything related to our brand and the little sub brands within our family. I want us to be the best, and if we're not, then we're gonna try to kick ourselves in the butt until we are. And so that's kind of that. And I just wanted to bring it up because I get it. Sometimes it's probably confusing. It's like, dude, but you got a podcast and you got all these platforms, and I get it. Like it took a long time to get here to be able to promote the stuff I was building. And, so I just want you to know it's all love. It's all love. And I want everyone to succeed. And, but let's all work together to push each other to the best. That's what this is all about for me and what's super important. So with that said, hopefully I didn't bore you too much with that. Sometimes I know I talk about the business side and maybe you're wondering what that's all about, but it's because I love everyone out there and I want to make sure that we keep Telemark and keep it moving forward, and we're good stewards of the sport. And being good stewards means that we push hard to carry on traditions. And also, I love seeing people try to start businesses where they can take their own spin on it. And, my spin is not your spin. And that's what makes the world beautiful. So, all right. Well, signing off, I want to make sure all of you know about our mailing list. We put out an awesome email at the beginning and end of each week. It takes into account all of the stuff we talked about, from Freeheel Life, Telemark Skier Magazine, Bluebird Day Gear, events that we're doing, and we want you to sign up for it. So go to the link in the show notes, become part of the mailing list. It's a great way to not have to burn your whole day on social media wondering what we're doing. You get a nice email twice a week, and it's all there. So you can connect with me directly on the social medias, Josh Nomadson. You can check me out there. I've been doing a bunch. I'm having fun. I've been digging through some old clips, making the reels, because I'm super psyched about that. I wish when I was making movies, that everything was like 30 to 90 seconds and the music didn't cost me anything. So I'm having a blast doing those. So if you like that, I've got some collaboration posts I'm doing across the Teleskier Mag accounts on Instagram and Facebook, as well as the Freeheel Life at Freeheel Life. And check that stuff out. We've got all the Volet stuff in. You guys know that. Majos are stocked from In Wild, and you can get those at freeheellife.com. We've got tons of new merch coming out. It is time. Telemark season is around the corner. We want to be your preferred brand, your preferred retail shop to get your bindings and skis and service and knowledge. And it's all love, baby. So until next week, brothers and sisters and fellow protectors of the turn, spread Telemark always. Peace out.